Well, okay then. Welcome to episode 24 of the Unlearning Playground podcast. If you are consuming this on YouTube, you can already see that this is the first video episode of this podcast. Now, this is the direction I've always wanted the Unlearning Playground to take, and it looks like that 2023 will be the year when it actually comes to fruition. Let's see. On that note, in fact, this is going to be the last episode of 2022. So I think this is a timely one. The topic that I've chosen for this episode is hope and equanimity. And I think those are two very positive, let's say, positive frames of mind to leave an old year with, to leave 2022 with, and to start 2023 with. Whatever be that demarcation line, of course, we make up all of these things in our heads. But I still feel that just maneuvering around them for our own good is eventually for our own good. So let's see. Now, I wanted to start this episode with a little story. This is another story that I've shared previously on my Instagram page and I absolutely love it. Just the sheer clarity, it's amazing. Let's see. So it starts with once upon a time there was a Chinese farmer who lost a horse. It ran away. And all the neighbors came around that evening and said, "That's too bad." The guy replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, brought back 7 wild horses with it. And all the neighbors came around and this time said, "That's great, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." Now, the next day, his son, while trying to tame one of those wild horses that the other horses brought back, he fell down and broke his leg. And all the neighbors came around and said, "That's too bad, isn't it?" And he says, "Maybe." And the next day, conscription officers come along looking for new recruits for the army. They look at his son and because he's injured, they reject him. And all the neighbors come around again and say, "That's wonderful, isn't it?" And he says, "Maybe." And that's it. That's the story. Now, I think this story overall has 2 chief messages, which is the title of this episode: hope and equanimity. Let's talk about hope first. You know, I'm sure we've all had downward phases in our lives, those phases where we would think that whatever burden is there on our shoulders, we are not going to be able to take it, right? And I'm sure we've all had those phases in our lives because life tends to ebb and flow like that. There are upward phases followed by downward phases, followed by upward phases, right? This happens with all of us. And this is true in all respects: your performance at work, your day by day moods, the performance of your favorite sporting team, etc., right? Happens to all of us. So, in those downward phases, it's very important to keep up the hope because that next upward curve is just around the corner, right? That is, after all, what the story's bad phases were about, right? Whenever something bad would happen, the horse would run away or the child would be injured. The, our farmer, our protagonist, was wise enough to understand that maybe it's not all so bad. Let's keep up the hope, right? And on that note, equanimity. Now, equanimity is something which I think is quite misunderstood, at least outrightly, because what we want equanimity to mean is outward composure and calmness. And that is an aspect of it, but that's not it, right? Because if you want to be outwardly calm and outwardly composed, it can happen that that actually translates to suppressing your emotions. That's not what we want, right? I think a better way to understand equanimity is an acceptance of what is, an acceptance of the present situation and your emotions alongside, right? So don't suppress your emotions, but it's wise to also understand that you don't have to act out on all of them. Now, just like a farmer, whenever things would take a bad turn, his response was maybe they're bad, let's see. And whenever things were positive too, his responses were maybe, because I'm not too sure, right? I'm going to keep acting the way I'm acting. Let's see. So, this is equanimity. The guy was equanimous to both the ups and downs, right? And this also reminds me of that famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, If. If was quite a moving poem. If you do not remember it right now, you should go ahead and have a look at it. I remember one of the sections in that book, in that poem, was if you can treat both triumphs and defeats and treat both those imposters just the same, something of that sort. Now, he calls defeats and triumphs both as imposters. And I really love that wording because aren't they really imposters? You know, a very big defeat can make you feel like a complete loser, and a very big victory can make you feel as if you're invincible. And both of them are, in that sense, imposters, right? And you have to treat them with equanimity, you have to treat them with acceptance and treat them the same. Now, of course, in these times of social media, it's very hard to remain equanimous about whatever is happening around the world because everything is so blown out of proportion by everyone around us, right? The media, influencers, our own friends, content creators, all of these kinds of people, it's kind of become our day job to blow things out of proportion. And it's not like everyone is in a conspiracy to do it. Everyone is themselves entangled within kind of, let's say, that whirlpool of blowing up everything, right? So that is where I feel, just at the turn of a new year, this is a good message to have for everyone, to be hopeful and also remain equanimous to whatever is happening around you. Because at the end of the day, if you can really bring whatever information you get into an acceptance mode and then act out of, let's say, love, not acting out of fear, not acting out of fear of not being enough, not having enough, fear of missing out, etc., I think we'll be good. So, on that note, I'll also end today's episode. Like I mentioned, this is going to be the last episode of 2022, and 2022, in fact, ended on a very positive note for the Unlearning Playground. Spotify sent me a mail stating that the Unlearning Playground ranks amongst the top 5% most shared podcasts globally. That is a beautiful start to have. I mean, not only does it show that people are appreciating the content, it also shows that people are devoted to it and are also sharing it with their community, which is something I absolutely stand by. And I feel that in the absolute ocean of content out there on the internet, it's very easy for new things to simply get lost. So, the best way to get your content out there is actually via word of mouth. So, if you're involved in that, start reaching my mailbox. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, and keep sharing the love. Keep hope and equanimity in your heart and your mind. And until next time, peace out.